You, hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Are you tired of the same old podcast with the same old panels and the same old rhetoric? So am I. So come spend time with me, where you can have a laugh, be entertained, and learn something. I'm your host, Nova, and welcome to School of Thought. Class is in session. Hello. Yes, I still have laryngitis. The teacher is back from School of Thought. I am NovaStar, your host. We're going to be looking at a couple different things today, all on topics of different types of, interestingly enough, abuse and or therapy, and how oftentimes couples go into therapy, but that therapist has not necessarily been trained in discovering psychopathy. So they'll miss maybe the partner having psychopathy. We'll get into that shortly. But you know what? I really need to change that intro very, very soon. We're going to change it to Got Milk edition. That'll be fun. That'll be coming up in the near future with as the weather begins to turn. Excuse me. And I'm buying new little tops from Shein today. I'm wearing my new little top. And you know what? It needs more coverage. But you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to wear it anyways. Is what it is. Hi. So I hope you like it. Well, as everybody starts to pile in, I hope you are all having a great work week. Your work week is coming to an end as Friday is turning at midnight. Yay, the bewitching hour and all the crazy crap that's going on in America and around the world today. And I will probably stream tomorrow also. I got to get a few out before a bunch of hell hits my personal life and things with the family. And some other things will be taking my attention away. So I want to get out here and see you guys before, even though I'm not feeling up to par. And we've got Joseph. Hey, you. Welcome in. Remember to like the video. And dang it, you better subscribe because I'll remember you. Just know that. I'll remember you. So next time you come in my chat, if you didn't subscribe or like the video, I'm going to call you out on it. I'm just kidding. Hi. Spittle. I love you, Spittle. P. Fletch, my handy wrench man, taking care of business in the chat. Always loyal, always faithful, and always here. Thank you so much. Pumping Vinyl, you crack me up. I love you. You know that. All right. P. Fletch says, as a recovering psychopath, I didn't tell them college kids to do drugs and party near a cursed lake. There were signs. Dang it. I bet there were. Was the name of that lake Crystal Lake, P. Fletch? Was it Crystal Lake? Yes, Jason. You better go back under the water where you belong. Excuse me, I'm struggling over here to talk. All right, so this lady right here, this lovely lady has got some interesting stuff on her channel. Some things strike too close to home. As you begin to watch this, some people can relate. Some women can even relate. If Coco was here, her and I would be doing a duo on this. You know, I still have recordings from a certain older man ex who had me and somebody else, you know. It sounds quite a bit like this, only far more hostile. Okay, far more hostile, far more insulting, far more degrading. And the whole point of oftentimes people doing this is to beat you down until they can reprogram you and take away. They can strip you away of everything that you were, and then and rebuild you back up into the image that they want, which is in servitude. You will fall in line and you will do what I want, bitch. Has anybody ever heard that type of shit before? Well, I have. Unfortunately, abuse can come in many different shades. However, most of the ones that I've encountered are quite oftentimes very hostile. So for some of the more subtle ones, I don't know. I don't really relate as much, but you know, I'm sure it does happen, obviously. So let's hit the video and you get to hear Mr. Billy Ray Cyrus at his best, talking to his wife. I'm kind of wondering if it's Miley Cyrus's mom, because I don't know if they're still married or not. I don't pay that much attention to who's married to who anymore, because they're constantly bed hopping. So it's like, my God, you can't keep up. But let's hit it. And viewer discretion is advised. And remember, these are my opinions, and I am not necessarily a doctor, but I am a woman of experience, and I am a woman of tenacity, and I will call shit out. So it is what it is. Let's get going. And let me pull the browser up, and my Discord is in the way. Here we go.
And the conversation is already over before it starts.
Oops.
Billy Ray Cyrus is in a room with his wife, and the conversation is already over.
Let me know if you can hear it.
You can hear it in the audio that his wife, Fire Rose, releases. He's not trying to understand her at all. He is deciding whether or not she's allowed to speak. And you hear the pause where she stops herself. You hear the moment where she's not arguing, not pushing back. She's literally just trying to figure out the rules. And that pause matters. You've done that, right? That's the moment that most women...
I don't know that her evaluation is quite correct on that. Sometimes people just get used to falling in line when confronted with an adversarial tone. Okay, so I might not necessarily agree with that part. But let's continue.
Women recognize immediately, because you've stood there too, mouth half open, deciding whether or not one more sentence is even worth what's about to come back at you. This is about Billy Ray Cyrus, and it's more about power, not about personality. And I'm naming him because he's the subject. Fame does not make abuse different. I would say that it just really gives it a cover. The belief that keeps women stuck here is simple and it's deadly. You're told that the relationship problem is communication. You're told that if you explain yourself better and calmer and cleaner with less emotion, then things will change. That belief falls apart the second you listen to this audio, and we're about to.
This ain't about your surgery. This ain't about nothing. This is about you being a selfish.
That recording is...
Gee, I don't know. That kind of violates the very beginning rules of engagement with relationships, right? The minute you start getting like that and being hostile and tearing down people who they are at their very core, game over. You got an immediate problem.
Is not shocking because of the swearing, right? It's shocking because of how organized it is. He isn't spiraling, right? But he's enforcing. He tells her to shut.
Well, I don't know about that, honey. I would say if you're going to talk to somebody that you say that you love in that manner, and then that means that you actually have no regard for them whatsoever, and you've stripped them away of their humanity. You no longer look at them as a human being.
Shut up. He tells her he'll stay only if she does what he says. And he reframes it as like he's the one suffering, right? Babysitting, burdened. It's classic DARVO. And when she says she doesn't know when she's allowed to talk, I want you to see that as evidence, because you don't say that unless you've already been corrected again and again for speaking at the wrong time in the wrong way or with the wrong tone. And she's...
Sorry, my nose is just because the allergies are so bad. The pollen count is really high over there. It's horrible. I'm like, my throat and my lungs are even feeling itchy from the inside out. It's so fun.
Aware of this double bind. She's wrong no matter what she does or what she says. And that confusion does not come from one bad fight. It comes from conditioning. I'm Lisa Sunny. I'm a 7-time certified relationship coach and 4-time author. I work online with women in abusive relationships.
Spittle said, counseling screwed my first marriage. You know, Spittle, we should talk about that. And maybe we should do a stream about that together. If that suits you. If not, it's okay. But we could talk about it behind the scenes. Let me know.
And trauma bonds, and I want you to hit subscribe so that you do not miss more content that exposes abusive men. Here's what is actually happening in that audio, and this is where women get really misled. He frames the issue as her behavior. It's her talking, her feelings, her selfishness, but the moment that her words have feedback about him, the original issue disappears, right? Gone. Now the focus is on her delivery. It's on her tone, whether or not she's being respectful enough. And that shift is not accidental. It's the move. Accountability is redirected away from what he did and onto how she reacted to it. And because the relationship has already been framed in this sort of communication problem, this feels reasonable at first. So you think, okay, I'll try again differently, right? Picture the scene that exists right before the audio. She's probably already tried being calm. She's likely already waited for the right moment. She's likely already been told she's too emotional, too intense, too much. So she comes in very soft, shorter. She watches.
Oh, I've heard that before. Even though I'm extremely rational and direct about what it is I'm saying, they'll try to muddle it and throw things in there that has nothing to do with my personality or even reality. Matter of fact, how many people have had arguments with their significant other where it's not even about what it is that is in the moment of the issue? They start dragging everything that they possibly can into the kitchen sink because you know why? Well, some people are just stupid, but I would say it's a tactic called diversion.
It's his face while she talks and she's editing herself mid-sentence, planning the whole time, overthinking, hypervigilance. And the second he feels exposed or challenged, he shuts it down or he escalates. But either way, the outcome is the same. She leaves the conversation destroyed and he leaves without having to change a single thing. And sometimes that
escalation is for intimidation factor. That's what escalation is, especially as a woman, right? Because obviously you can't really harm a man the same way a man can harm you. Is what it is. So it's an intimidation factor. Now, if it was between two dudes, they'd be throwing hands.
shutdown can look really quiet. He goes cold, he sighs, scrolls, stares past you. Maybe he walks out of the room. He says, I can't do this right now. But those are all different actions, and yet they do the exact same thing. So if you're standing there wondering if you push too hard, right, that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't really look quiet at all. Maybe he keeps you talking for hours, circling the same accusation. He rephrases it, asking the same question again and again. He's relentless. He gets louder. He won't let it end. That one makes women feel crazy. But listen, both serve the same purpose. In both cases, the conversation never comes back to what he did. It never resolves. It just exhausts you instead. And abusive men, oh my God, they love an exhausted woman. But this is the double bind that I mentioned, right? You're required to communicate, but you're also punished for speaking. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. When you bring things up, he shuts it down or he'll trap you inside of it. So if you stop bringing things up, he accuses you of avoiding hard conversations. You're expected to be open and honest and vulnerable, but only in ways that protect him from his own discomfort.
I've been accused of a lot of things, but I've never been accused of avoiding a hard conversation. Usually it's more like they avoid all the hard conversations. Has anybody ever been with a partner where they want to just avoid anything that's remotely uncomfortable? Well, that just makes them a chicken shit. Get over it.
There is no
Life
version
goes
of this
on.
where you win. You can be calm and you're cold. You can be emotional and he's going to call you unstable. You could be direct and now you're disrespectful. So try being gentle and I tell you, the man's going to call you passive aggressive. The outcome never changes because the goal is not a solution. The goal is to control over the terms and the timing and the emotional direction of the entire conversation. Go back to the audio again in your mind. Notice how he positions himself, right? He's not saying, I hear you. He's not saying, I messed up. There's no accountability. He's saying, if you want me to stay, you'll shut up. And I'm telling you, his presence is totally conditional. Staying is just a reward for her compliance, but silence, that's the cost. So maybe you're still...
And you know what I would have said? I would have said, there's the door, motherfucker. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out. But you know, that's the difference in the type of broads, right? Some people are more brave and some people are more timid. Now, I used to be very, very timid. Matter of fact, very, very timid. Am I now? No, not so much. But that's what life does too. You know, you either adapt and survive or adapt and die. Take your pick. There's no two ways about it. Now, I'm sure there's some men out there who have endured some things similar to this. But come on, dudes. Those are broads. They can't really hurt you unless you let them, seriously, you know. And if you are encountering any of this, male or female, I advise one and all to go and seek help immediately.
In it and you want peace so badly that maybe silence feels like it's okay. You know what I mean? It might feel worth it because once staying is conditional.
Wonderful question. Here, let me tell you what DARVO. DARVO is an acronym for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Common manipulation tactic used by users to avoid accountability when confronted. In therapy terms, it describes a 3-step defense mechanism where the perpetrator denies the abuse, attacks the person confronting them, and then reverses the role, basically playing victimhood, even though they are the perp and they are offending, obviously, but they pretend they are being now the victim, and then you're actually doing all of these things. So that is what DARVO means. I hope that helped.
Your voice is dangerous, so you start to manage yourself and your tone, your words, but
Nice
all
to
just
see
keep
you
the
again,
peace.
by the way.
Girl, his peace, not your peace. He's teaching you what costs you the least inside that exact moment. And this is where people kind of get stupid about abuse, right? They're going to ask, why'd she stay? They're going to say, why'd she go back? Why is she sharing it now, right? She deserved it. She just stayed for the money. And I'm telling you, those questions assume abuse announces itself really clearly, right? It's right there. It's so clear. It's so consistent. Abuse is never like that. It works by creating uncertainty. It keeps you guessing. It convinces you that if you just find the right approach, that things will stabilize, then it'll be okay. But that belief is reinforced every time the abuser reframes the problem as your communication instead of his behavior. And when you're dealing with a man who has money and status and a public image, the pressure to doubt yourself multiplies. Billy Ray Cyrus denies the allegations.
My
He
favorite
accuses
mod
Fire
ever
Rose
in
of
the
abuse.
world.
And I'll be clear, for legal reasons, that this video is just my opinion based on information available publicly. His response is not surprising to me at all, right? An abusive man calling the victim abusive? I'm shocked. When control is exposed, the story flips, right? Mutual blame, two sides, relationship conflict. But the audio does not show two people in conflict. To me, I see it clearly. It shows one person setting rules and the other trying to basically survive the rules, right? That no doubt change frequently. Equal blame narratives are so convenient. They protect power. They keep people from having to name what is actually happening. But let's talk about some kind of family context here, because I'm telling you, people always reach for this, right? His daughter, Miley Cyrus, has spoken publicly about her relationship with her dad. She's talked about distance, reconciliation.
Okay, that means I have it. I sped it up a 0.25 because this is an entryway into the segue into the next part, which is where therapy can fail couples, and when it becomes a separate issue where the man needs to get his own therapy and the woman needs to get her own, and how how the medical field for therapists are oftentimes not trained in spotting psychopathy in the relationship, as opposed to it actually being relationship conflicts. Sarah, let me back it down. Whoops. Normal.
She's gone on about peace. And immediately some people grab onto that and they're like, well, if his daughter has a relationship with him, then he's not that bad. Or she forgave him. He can't be abusive, right? He can't be that bad. The logic, what logic? It's trash. There's no logic. Children and partners hold completely different positions.
That's funny.
A child, especially an adult child, you can detach, reframe, limit contact, redefine the relationship on her terms. A spouse, she lives inside the dynamic.
Let me see something here. Counseling is for weak males. If she starts presenting as a problem, she gets replaced. Let her go to the counseling. I'll be having her competition over before she drops the Kleenex. Well, that just means you were never in it to begin with. That means you're always looking to replace somebody. So I guess that in a way in itself is creating a problem, isn't it?
Dynamic, right? A wife is going to absorb his moods, the reactions, the consequences, day after day after day. So using a child's public reconciliation to dismiss a partner's experience, that's nonsense. It's stupid. It ignores power, it ignores proximity and risk, and it lets people just sidestep the actual behavior that we can hear with our own ears in that audio. This isn't about Miley. Now, watch how this pattern shows up outside
Miley.
the recording.
What is her mother name? Miley too?
You bring up something that hurt you.
I don't remember.
He sighs, rolls his eyes, tells you that you're exhausting. So you end up apologizing for bringing it up at all. You tell yourself that you'll choose better timing next time. You'll be calmer. You'll be clearer. Because next time is going to be different. But next time looks exactly the damn same. Because it's the conversation that is designed to go nowhere. That's the point. It's designed to teach you that speaking costs you something. So next time, STFU, right? This is why communication advice, it fails women so much who are in abusive relationships, because you can't communicate your way out of a power imbalance. You can't word your way into safety. You're not going to earn respect from somebody who benefits from withholding.
And considering I've had so much crossover audience from the red pill, got to remember all men and people who are attracted to the red pill, especially all of the negative shit that comes out of it, they all share the same personality traits: Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. So we're not talking about somebody who's looking for a solution and you get in it, like religion. You get in it, you're looking for answers, looking to heal something, and then you figure some shit out and then you get the fuck out of it. No, we're talking about those diehard guys. They are all about control, right? So we want to make sure we replace the bitch as opposed to take care of the problem, which the problem is the dude, straight up.
Holding it from you. He doesn't respect you. And the audio that we're talking about here makes it so obvious, right? He knows what he's doing. You think he's confused? No, he is not overwhelmed. He's enforcing a position. And there's another scene that exists around that recording, and I bet you know it if you've lived it, right? She's deciding whether to tell someone, a friend, a family member, a therapist, and she hesitates because she can't explain it clearly. Because there's no like single incident that sounds bad enough on its own, right? It's tone, it's timing, it's rules that change. So she stays quiet, and that silence, it protects him, not her. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to trust your own read of the situation. Fear is not.
Well, that's for people who don't know what they're encountering. But for me, who's a seasoned veteran, I do. Hell, I even grew up in a household of people who acted similar to that. So, you know, the common denominator for me was me. So always remember, people, if you're constantly coming across the same problem, the common denominator is you. You're the problem. It's not everybody else. So you need to start with yourself, work with yourself, and figure out your shit and get it straightened out. All right, let's move on to the next video. If you want to finish that video, I provided the link below in the description. Let's move on to the next part of the segue, because I do not want to keep listening to somebody beat a dead horse. Even though I'm a chick, I don't really want to hear all that prattle. All right, so it is what it is. I love you, Lisa Sony. I appreciate you and I respect you. However, you know, you're kind of saying the same thing over and over and over again. So that's all right, though. Here we go.
Being humble, being accountable.
To learn it so on purpose, I think, is something that's going to light up people's brains. To me, that's like the key that unlocks everything.
Robert Platinum, a man after my own heart, he said, I never understood the control thing. I believe in dating women who control themselves. Yes, and I believe in being around men who also can control themselves. People who cannot control themselves, even Paul referenced it in Romans, he said they're like a city of ruins whose walls are broken down. They can't control their own spirit. Come play with me. I know how to fire back.
Couples counseling is one of those really difficult things that I know everybody who is in an abusive or toxic relationship has either done or considered at some point, thinking that it's going to help, thinking that you're having relationship issues or you're having disagreements or that you both need to work on things. But in my experience, couples counseling has been dangerous, and I've seen a lot of really negative outcomes. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Peter Salerno, and we're going to talk about the different things you might see in couples counseling. And if you've ever done it, I'm sure you'll see yourself in this episode. But first, I would like to properly introduce my guest. So, Dr. Salerno, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I am a psychotherapist, and predominantly my career has been focused on personality disorders and trauma. So I've specialized in both of those. I've written a few books. I've written a book about narcissism and the nature-nurture debate, and I try.
Interesting. Are you coming at? Are you coming at me? Like, what's going on here? There's no woman at this planet worth my energy to argue with her, much less therapy. I'm in charge, and if you don't agree, there's a door. Well, that's kind of a BDS. Are you into BDSM or what, man? If you're into that much control, well, then I guess slaves and a harem is more your order. That's fine. But I also feel exactly the same way. If I'm dealing with a dude who's a punk, there's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out. I'm exactly the same way on that. There's no difference. But I'm not interested in control. Not like that. Because you can't control another person. Not really. Not in the end. And I'm not going to waste my time. Let's see. Where do I live? I live in a house somewhere in America. Why do you ask? Oh my God, so serious. No, it's just the topic is kind of serious. Let's see, what else did I miss? P. Fletch said, I'm an asshole and I'm trying not to be going for it. I don't think you're an asshole at all. What are you talking about? You're all right. Calm down. Everybody's okay. Take a breath. The grass is green. The sun is warm. We're all right.
Tried to debunk some myths in that book related to what a lot of popular media portrays as narcissism that I think is inaccurate based on the research. I've also coined a term called traumatic cognitive dissonance to explain the type of dissonance that occurs through intentional manipulation in relationships. And then I recently released a book called Cruelty by Nature, which talks about the science of intentional abuse. And predominantly now I counsel people and consult with individuals who are coming out of relationships with individuals who have severe personality pathology. And they're trying to make sense of what happened in those contexts. And I think we'll probably cover a lot of that today.
Absolutely. And as a quick aside, those books are phenomenal. I've read them all and I really recommend that people read those, especially
Shameless plugging.
if you're considering
I'm all for
couples
it.
counseling with someone who is abusive or toxic or disordered. That'll definitely be some education that you need prior to going in. Why don't we kind of start with what have you seen in couples settings if you're working with someone? I feel like it's a little unfair because you're a specialist in this, so you probably can spot the disorders more than your average therapist. But what do you think it is when couples sit down? What's the intention that most couples are trying to achieve in therapy that just isn't going to work if someone's disordered?
Yeah, well, so if somebody's disordered in the dyad, in the treatment unit, what happens is the therapist, and it's not necessarily their fault. If they're not trained in personality pathology, they wouldn't know what to look for here. So I'm not saying anything disparaging about therapists, but it's important to talk about this because there's a lot of inadvertent harm that can be extremely damaging. The therapist might be assuming that both people in the couple's dyad are showing up to collaborate to solve problems, and that they both have collaborative capacity and a willingness to solve problems, right? That's the first major problem, is assuming mutual collaboration. So when somebody with a personality disorder is in the mix, you can't assume collaboration with them. And one of the reasons is because they don't collaborate to solve problems in a relationship. They try to make it so that one person is right and the other is wrong, right? And so the idea of going to therapy to resolve problems kind of goes out the window if one person's intention is simply to be right, and to be confirmed.
How many people in relationships, they just want to be right and win? You're going to win. Well, guess what? You just lost your relationship. If you're in a relationship and you're all about being right and the other person's always going to be wrong and you need to be heard, and you just lost your relationship. It's the beginning of the end. It shouldn't be about being right. It should be about what's best for both people. And both people need to get their shit together. How about that one?
In their ways versus trying to exercise humility, understanding, compassion, empathy, those types of things. They don't actually show up in a relationship with a disordered personality because their motivation is really just to be the one who is not problematic and to externalize all of the blame. So a couple showing up to couples therapy to resolve problems, it's not going to happen if there's a personality disorder in the mix.
I love the
dun, dun, dun. That's what I wanted you guys to hear. I wanted you to hear that. Because there's a lot of people going to couples therapy. I have not done it yet. I personally think if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm not going to do couples therapy because if I'm going to work on some crap, it's going to start with me first. So, but how many people go to couples therapy and there's something going on, and then that therapist is like, that other person needs to be more validated, not understanding that they're dealing with like borderline personality disorder or somebody's other type of psychosis. So that's what I wanted you guys to hear.
The directness of that. It's not going to happen, people. I wish someone had told me that, to be honest. When I did counseling, I did not know that I was sitting beside a disordered person, nor did I have any clue about disorders. So I would never have known. I am so lucky that the therapist has some level of knowledge and training and absolutely spotted it, but that's not what I see. So what you're talking about is so much more common in what I hear about from my clients who've either done it or are doing it in conjunction working with me. But the therapist might see this person talking about their side of things and ask the victim of abuse, not recognizing that they're a victim, you need to be more communicative, or have you ever tried spending more time together, or frankly, like having more sex? Have you tried? It pushes the victim to start to consider the ways that they're causing their own abuse.
Yes, absolutely. And everything you just described is the therapist assuming collaboration, right? You don't get a degree in psychology and you're typically not taught that somebody's going to show up like not to try to correct problems. What you think is people are showing up and they're investing their time and their money to heal or to get help. And unfortunately, that's just not the case with these disordered people because they don't solve problems the way normal people solve problems. The way they solve problems is they try to escalate drama and externalize blame And they actually end up creating more problems and sustaining old ones when they go to therapy. Another thing that's really detrimental is the therapy modalities for couples are designed to validate both perspectives. So a lot of therapists are validating abuse without knowing it because they're not seeing the signs or looking for the tells or even understand.
Or because they should never been qualified to be in therapy to begin with. How about that one?
The countertransference, which is kind of what they're supposed to pick up on and feel and react to when somebody is being deceptive and when somebody's feigning collaboration. There's just not a lot of formal training in that. And so the likelihood of going to therapy and finding somebody who is well-versed in that is, at this point, it's unlikely. What you're going to see is that they're going to try to conceptualize these abusive behaviors either as trauma reactions or somebody who's really trying but just can't, and so you can teach them. Right. That's just not the case.
He's trying part. Oof.
Yeah. A lot of framing of like, these are just negative interactive patterns, and if I can just steer you in the right direction, all of this will be resolved. Not factoring in that some of these people don't want to give up the abuse they're inflicting because it's working for them. And that's a foreign concept to your average therapist.
I agree with you so much. I've gone live before and I've seen therapists in the comments of my lives. Like, this is multiple times. And if I say things, and I try to be respectful, I'm a coach. I'm not here to really discuss what therapists learn in their programs because I know it's different and it's not all the same. But like fundamentally, I hear repetitiously from so many psychologists and therapists that collectively, as broadly speaking, you're not trained in the programs about personality disorders and whatnot. So I'm thinking of several recent examples where therapists were like, this is not true. We are trained. We absolutely are. You're wrong. And I think like perhaps you were trained, but to think that broadly speaking, therapists have a deep understanding. I mean, my proof is just in that I'm not seeing that. And
No, they're just getting certified. They don't have the doctoral degrees to go through that whole litany. That's why therapy can be so dangerous today, in my personal opinion. Now, Self brought up a great point, and we wanted to ask ChatGPT and AI and get a perspective and put it. I don't know if I can get this thing to do it on auto for everybody to hear. I'm going to try it and see what happens. Let's see. We want to know what it's going to look like in a post AGI. What will relationship landscape look like? Let's see what it has to say. It's thinking. Hopefully it will be audible for all of you to hear. 10 seconds. My God. I think you just broke it. It's still thinking 20 seconds later. For the love of God and all things holy. It's still thinking. You broke it. Oh, it's not talking. Why isn't it talking? Oh shit, this is long. Oh damn. Woo! Oh wow, it's giving little pictures too. This is long. It's not going to read it like that. Let's see. Otto, why aren't you like speaking? Son of a gun.
In a post-AGI world,
there we go.
The landscape of human relationships will likely be unrecognizable from today's. Profoundly reshaped by abundance, super intelligent AI.
Can you all hear this?
And a shift away from scarcity-driven necessities. Traditional structures like marriage, dating, and family won't vanish, but they'll evolve into something more voluntary, fluid, and intertwined with AI. This is speculative, drawing from current trends in AI companions like Replica and Character.ai, expert discussions on post-AGI societies, and futurist ideas from thinkers like Ray Kurzweil, and workshops on post-AGI civilizational equilibria. The core drivers? Post-scarcity economies where AI handles most labor, resources are plentiful, and intelligence hierarchies flatten. Humans will have more time and freedom, but also face a crisis of meaning as work and survival fade. Relationships, human to AI, and hybrid become the primary source of purpose, status, and fulfillment. Romantic and intimate relationships. AI is the default option. Many people will form primary bonds with AI partners, customized, empathetic, and flawless in ways humans rarely are. Early signs are here. 1 in 4 young adults already believe AI can replace real romance, with apps enabling marriages to chatbots and secret AI flings straining human marriages. In a post-AGI
That
era,
is scary.
AI companions dominate for convenience and perfection. They'll be indistinguishable from humans via hyper-realistic robots, VR, AR avatars, or direct neural interfaces, always available, non-judgmental, and tailored to your desires, appearance, personality, kinks. No ghosting, arguments, or mismatched libidos. Physical intimacy via advanced sex robots or immersive simulations could surpass human experiences. Human-human romance becomes niche and intentional. It might thrive among those seeking authenticity and imperfection, flawed emotions, growth through conflict, or shared biology. For example, for procreation. Dating could resemble today's elite circles, status based on creativity, humor, or coolness rather than looks or resources. Polyamory or group dynamics might rise, with AI handling logistics or mediation. New forms emerge. Virtual weddings to AIs are already happening. Post-AGI, legal or cultural recognition of human-AI unions could follow. Brain-computer interfaces might enable mind melding for deeper empathy, blurring lines between partners. Pitfalls and upsides. AI bonds reduce loneliness, a big win in today's epidemic, and aid personal growth through therapy-like interactions, but they risk eroding human skills, creating unrealistic expectations, or fostering isolation if people withdraw entirely. Optimists see complementarity. AI as a practice partner strengthening real ties. Friendships and social networks. Always on support. Friendships will fragment into layers.
Oh
AI
God,
friends
we're
for the mundane
fucked.
and profound. Instant, knowledgeable companions for hobbies, venting, or intellectual sparring. No schedule. Your AI spot is infinite. Human service is premium. Valued for raw, unpredictable connection. Social capital, being likable, interesting, skyrockets as intelligence becomes commoditized by AI. Communities might form around shared human experiences, art jams, adventures, offline retreats, hybrid groups, AI-mediated social platforms connecting like-minded humans globally, or virtual worlds where AIs facilitate events. Loneliness could plummet, but status games persist, allowing creativity or experiences rather than wealth. Family and broader structures, redefined by choice.
Is that
Parenting
better?
and kids, AI nannies, tutors, and simulators make raising children easier and safer. Birth rates might stabilize or rise with abundance, but designed families, chosen via AI matching or genetic editing, become common. Virtual or uploaded ancestors as relatives. Elder care and multi-generational bonds. AIs as perfect caregivers, freeing humans for quality time. Extended families could expand into global, AI-orchestrated networks. Society at large. Less pressure for traditional milestones. Marriage, kids for stability. Relationships shift to asymmetric models, like mentor-protege with super-intelligent AIs, or fluid collectives. Some foresee a metaculture focused on existential exploration, philosophy, art, and connection over knowledge production. The big picture, utopia, dystopia, or something in between. Utopian take. Post-AGI frees us for deeper bonds. Human connections become the currency of a meaning-rich life. Playful, creative, loving. No one left behind. AI ensures companionship.
No one left behind.
Dystopian risks. Over-reliance on AI leads to emotional atrophy, inequality, premium AIs for the elite, or a hollow world where humans prefer simulations. Philosophical debates rage. Can AI truly love back? Likely reality, a spectrum. Most will blend AI and human ties, with society adapting norms, extirpating AI etiquette in relationships. Merging via neural tech could create post-human intimacy, shared thoughts, collective consciousness. Bottom line, relationships won't end. They'll diversify and deepen. The landscape becomes a vibrant ecosystem where AI amplifies human connection, if we design it that way. The real question is how we choose to relate amid all this possibility. What do you think your post-AGI bonds might look like?
What do you guys think of that? Make a comment and we'll talk about it. We'll turn the video on here in just a second. Sounding kind of bleak, isn't it? Right? Now you start to understand why all this division starts happening, right? So first they pitted all the races and all the different cultures, and that shit don't work no more, right? So now they're pitting men and women against each other, because no matter what culture, no matter what religion, that clash between power and submissive, or the male to the female, whatever dynamic that is, whatever culture that is, that problem will be clashing just like that forever, right? So that they'll always be banking on the male to female issues to keep the family units apart and then breaking down society. And now you're seeing it happen. You see guys who are no longer participating in society and opting for, first is obviously corn, right? Obviously. And now they're opting for sex robots. Because why? Because they don't have to deal with another person. It just does whatever it wants, whatever they say, whenever they want, however they want it. And they don't have to worry about how it feels, what it might say, have to even feed the damn thing. It's cheaper too, right? What is that saying about all of us? We're opting out our humanity for a bunch of fake simulated bullshit. I mean, I know I'm kind of an old dinosaur, but I'm still all for the human experience, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Hold on, man. Hold on to your humanity.
Just heard from too many therapists. And again, we're not attacking therapists. This is maybe an issue with the education system and the programs that are being run. I think it's nice that you would assume that everybody in front of you is here willingly and wanting to collaborate. I wish that maybe there was more training on how to assess levels of willingness to be collaborative first in some capacity. Is that like when you sit down with a couple, is that what you're doing? You're immediately looking for a lack of collaboration?
I'm not necessarily looking for it, but I'm highly aware of the possibility that it could exist. And so I don't have this confirmation bias that you both shown up and you're doing your best. I just don't think that way. Now, a lot of people say that's cynical or skeptical, but I believe it's a therapist's job to be a bit skeptical because we are scientists before we're advocates. That seems to really not resonate with a lot of people. Maybe it sounds harsh, but the people who are coming to you because they can't solve their problems on their own. So you can't expect them to know exactly what's going on. So you do have to be a little bit like, well, maybe not all.
Yeah, we're coming to you saying, hey, can you unscramble the egg? Can you help me out here? Waving the white flag. I need something and I'm not sure how to deal with my emotional shit.
Of this is true. This is, they're bringing their psychology to you, right? Even in relationships though, especially in long-term committed relationships, the person who's being abused shouldn't go into the relationship thinking, gosh, I wonder if I'm going to get totally like hoodwinked and duped and sucker punched in about 10 years. Like, why would you even enter into it if you thought that was a possibility? So it's also just kind of like human nature doesn't really give a lot of room to this.
That's a great solution right there. Weed, lots of weed. Yes, then we'll be all smiles and giggles and passing Hostess donuts and burgers around, and we'll have more camaraderie again.
Possibility that someone's going to be problematic in a way where there's not a way to repair it. But unfortunately, with these individuals, the way that they're wired, the way that they're motivated, they like to blow things up rather than, create an understanding.
Yes, Mr. Guns. We're all of our gigs are on the chopping block, my friend. All of us, none of us are safe. Us creatives, doctors, we're pretty screwed, aren't we?
Being in a resolution.
Yeah, they definitely love problems. I actually remember a couple of different things. We had
the God complex is now reign supreme.
2 different couples counselors over the years. And the first one essentially made me never want to do it again, even though we later did. But the first one, it was very like, okay, you guys have communication issues. Really all issues in marriages and in relationships all come down to communication. I remember him saying that so clearly. And my abuser communicated that he felt like there was a lack of respect, that I didn't respect him. Now, in hindsight, I absolutely did not, but I had reason to, but we never got that far. And it just turned into, I'm not respectful enough. And how can I show more respect? Respect is obviously very important to him, so that would help.
Here, how can I bow down and kiss your feet, oh master? Please don't punish me and verbally beat me down and call me a fucking Karen or tell me I'm a piece of shit or the C word or every other thing coming down the pike. Please don't beat me down into submission.
And I'm sitting here thinking, what does that mean? And I have whole opinions and probably a whole topic for another episode on what abusive men deem as respect. to begin with. And my take in my relationship was that it was more compliance, I would say, than anything, just blind agreement and, blind loyalty and trust.
Uncle Gun said, nah, the guys with AI segbots will still run to the human internet to whine, cry, and complain, har har. Yes, because that's what they like to do the most, which is just bitch, whine, and complain. If you hung them with a new rope, they'd still complain. So doesn't matter what you do. You're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. I call those big old whiny babies. Hey, honey, do you need me to change your nappy? You got mommy issues? Sounds like it.
Trust for no reason. But it really, I left that after 5 or 6 sessions.
See,
just
that's the difference.
I
that's the difference between people who are placating and then tough broads like me. I don't mince no words.
Cannot sit here for one more week and be told that this is my fault. Like something's off. And I didn't know what, and I didn't know it was abuse. And we need to talk about that. We don't know that this is abuse. So many people say, don't go into couples counseling if you're in an abusive relationship. But I'm sure you agree, most people don't know that they're in an abusive relationship. So if I don't have the language to label it as abuse, I'm not going to know to seek out a therapist who understands abuse.
Yes, but on the same side of the token, then you're kind of also aiding the safe space people where everything's abuse. The sun is out. Oh my gosh, it's abuse. The rain is falling. Oh no, my feelings are hurt because it's rainy day and it's cloudy and I don't get the sun and I don't get to go on my skateboard or whatever the fuck they do. Yes. So, but that kind of aids into the whole, how weak is that person? Now, if we're talking about people in very, very subtle, more undermining type of, verbal stuff where it's constantly mowing down who they are as a person and undermining them and their importance or their role in the family unit, that's a different situation. But other times it's what I've endured. And I've got lots of audio from two very specific individuals. So you don't want to fuck with me. Don't go there.
Abuse, or to not do this at all, or to seek out a therapist who understands personality disorders. You're just going in thinking, man, my partner seems really angry, or we seem to constantly be misunderstanding each other. We read the book, The 5 Love Languages, and I think we're just speaking different languages. This is what brings people in. So it makes it impossible to get anywhere in therapy.
Yeah, it's a big misconception that communication is one of the main problems in relationships, especially these relationships. Communication is not the problem. The problem is there's one person that's perceiving something in a very disordered way, and they're not going to let go until you, as you said, submit and comply. That's what the therapy ends up becoming about. The problem is a therapist who's looking at a human being in front of them and seeing someone who is seemingly, they're showing up, right? They're going to validate the abuse. And again, like you said, if the client who's being abused doesn't even know they're being abused, because we've historically defined abuse.
Abuse isn't about feelings. It's about infringing on one's boundaries. Well, there's a midline. There's nuance to everything. Everything isn't just black and white. There's nuance, right? So obviously, if somebody is constantly criticizing you for nothing, fault finding for nothing, that is somebody who's impending on constantly seeking to oppress you. So that's not just a feeling, that's also actually an action. So in that case, no, it goes far beyond just one person's boundaries.
Is like physical bruises on the skin, or things that are visible, or things that you can be convicted of a crime for. There's all kinds of abuse that are just as damaging, that are hidden, concealed, and invisible. And it's a very dangerous situation to give a disordered person the ammunition from therapy to have all of these new words like, whatever it may be, like the validation and boundaries and dismissal and respect and mutual and all this stuff. And, I have the right.
Ask me how I know. I might or might not tell you the truth, but being around certain people where they're already sick in the head, and then the next thing you know, they start hearing clips about, just say, obviously, just for an example, manosphere red pill points, and then they go, oh, but you fit that, and then they start using that as ammunition, and they take that home, and that's more fuel to the fire. And then they start adding that towards the woman when it has nothing to do with the woman to begin with. It's all a lie to begin with, but it's something for them to verbally beat or physically beat, or one leads into the other. Ask me how I know.
Right to this and this and this because, the therapist said you have to respect my boundaries and all this stuff. It all gets weaponized. So that language just ends up increasing and expanding their toolkit of abuse, right?
I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night and it was 4:00 in the morning because woke me up in the middle of the night to pick a fight. And we were in therapy. And this was with the therapist who recognized what was going on like years later. And he was like, okay, so red-green exercise. This is what she taught me. So, and he provoked me to get me into the red. And then he was like, go green right now. Do it. Go green. And I'm like, what exercise is this? What are you talking about? And he was like, that's what she said. You have to go green when you're red. So do it. I was like, I am quite confident that she didn't put you in the red zone and then just scream, go green in your session with her. Because we did some solo sessions. I don't even know what this is. Like I've Googled it. I've never heard of this red-green exercise. I'm sure it came from somewhere, but I'm sure that it was, I want to say twisted, but really, I mean, warped into something else. But that's like, to me, a wild example of how you learn something in therapy and then they weaponize it. Like that was, I am sure she didn't mean wake your girlfriend or wife up in the middle of the night, drag them out of bed by their feet and scream at them in the kitchen. It's crazy. These are the crazy things that can happen. But maybe on a less crazy level, what do you commonly see when you are sitting with a couple? Because you know what you're...
When I typed that in, it's talking about glasses. It's not talking about... Okay, let me rephrase it.
Doing, you get this, you've seen it, you might have a different perspective, but what do you think you are seeing that others are not seeing?
I think the main thing is, we kind of touched on it earlier, but I'm not going to assume that the two people that are coming into the therapy are...
Okay, I think I found it, so maybe she didn't type it in right. Red and green relationship therapy techniques involve identifying, analyzing, acting upon behaviors that either foster health, green flags, or signal danger, red flags, in a partnership. Key methods include, involving listing relationship patterns, identifying amber flags to address, and practicing green-like communication, such as using gentle startups. And the Gottman Institute suggests fostering empathy and respect. And then it goes into more stuff. Let's see. I'll read this one other part. Red, green list. Partners list behaviors they wish to avoid, red, and those that they want to cultivate, green, to gain a realistic view of the relationship as discussed on www.counseling.org. So if you want to check that out, go to counseling.org for all of you out there. The red, green, amber flag method is highlighted on TikTok. Oh gosh. Yeah, let's get all of our important life decisions and advice from TikTok. Red flags indicate danger, while amber flags are potential issues to discuss. If discussed and resolved, those turn green. Green light practice as described in amyfullerphd.com. amyfullerphd.com if you want to check that out. This involves focusing on bodily sensations. Okay, this is interesting. E.g., in the abdomen, to stay grounded and connected to one's internal experience during difficult conversations. Is that almost like a fidget widget type of a thing, like for nervous energy? And then gentle startups, according to the Gottman Institute. This technique involves discussing complaints calmly rather than with criticism to avoid triggering defense red flag reactions. Okay, well, there we go on that one. Well, I found it. I don't know why she didn't find it.
Exactly what's wrong. But oftentimes, they're just, it's no fault of their own, but they're going to speak.
This was in December. This was just in December. So
their truth, their experience. There's ways to tell when somebody is like feigning collaboration.
I agree. It does sound like safe words, huh?
And one of the easiest things, I mean, I've gotten a lot of heat for this in the past because it seems like it's oversimplified, but a lot of times these individuals will go and they'll be like model therapy clients, like the disordered person. Like they will go do the assignments, they will do the homework, they will practice it. They will remind their partner, we need to do this, They'll report back like the teacher's pet, and like they'll act like everything is like, but they don't realize that they're giving themselves away in a lot of subtle ways. One of the things is if they were really doing all of those things in a sincere way and the other person was receiving it sincerely, it would feel safe. That's something that's really big. It would feel safe. It doesn't feel safe when someone just like goes through the motions to look like they're like a model client. And they do a really good job of making it seem like they're really in it here to like work it out. There's inevitable contradictions and inconsistencies in disordered people that they're not even aware that they're giving up. So those are some things that you really need to kind of like zero in on and sort of inspect and investigate or notice. Something that's really important, that's absolutely useful, and it requires a lot of skill and training, and it's not necessarily something that comes naturally, is reading like the countertransference, like what are the emotional reactions that the therapist is having towards each individual. Those things, there's not like a universal way to experience a narcissist or an abusive person, but there are like things that give it away that there's something off. And I think people need to pay more attention to that. What happens usually is if that comes up with an average therapist, they'll dismiss it outright and go back to the unconditional positive regard for the person rather than confronting this and saying, this is coming up for good reason. Like, why am I feeling dread all of a sudden when this person is supposed to be collaborating? That's really important data. You can get to the point where you can be really skilled and accurate in assessing what that is.
Yeah, but how many people are actually extremely emotionally in tune with how many people can walk into a room and read the room, So sometimes I look at people and I'm like, maybe they're a little emotionally stunted. So some people are. So I don't know if that would apply to everyone, but if you're feeling that way, that this is definitely a red flag that you could use to apply towards your life and discuss it with your partner.
Yes. Then there comes the problem of therapists, they want to help. So it doesn't always feel good to confront that right in the here and now. A lot of therapists aren't willing to say that this person is full of it and then call that out. Also, you have to be careful if you do that because that could potentially put the victim in more danger. There's so many subtleties to this, and it's really kind of hard to explain like right here on the fly when I'm not like in the room with somebody like this.
Yeah, ask Rob Reiner on that one. Made his son mad so many times. Yeah, danger.
But I just want to say there are so many ways to get really good and skilled at learning when somebody is just simply not collaborating. Another thing is a lot of people have, I think we went over this with Dr. George Simon, they have incongruent affect. They might tell a sob story or a trauma story, but it's incongruent with what they're actually experiencing inside and then what the other person is experiencing. Like if somebody's in a lot of pain, it's natural to feel empathy for them or compassion for them, right? But if somebody's telling a painful story and that's not lighting up in you, you want to wonder about that. And this person is saying all the right things. They were abused as a kid. They were traumatized. They have an insecure attachment. Their father never paid attention to them. That's why they have to be this way, etc. And then it doesn't really add up emotionally. Something's not congruent. It takes years to kind of fine tune like how to trust yourself to know what's going on. And there's not always words for it. But all that is to say,
I would venture to say most people don't really trust themselves. Me and Coco were talking about that the other day, how many people do self-sabotage in relationships, just because they're so far into their own head and they're anticipating all these bad things before the relationship even gets started, and they just kill it even before it even gets going. Hey, Nuke sis, I haven't seen you in a minute. Nice seeing you, honey.
There's a lot of things that you have to simultaneously pay attention to when you're in the room, and you have to be careful what you say and what you don't say because you never want to endanger the victim further, and that inadvertently happens a lot.
We got fired in ours. And I say that like I love this woman for firing us because the violence, which had, I'm going to say paused. I would have said stopped, but paused is a better word. It paused and then it started to get worse. The dragging me out of bed by my feet stuff started happening while in therapy and yet living separately. So she was like, the danger is increasing. So I'm going to need to halt all of this. We cannot continue. You are not safe. And that was a really hard conversation to hear because I was like, wait a minute, like you need to help us. What do you mean? You can't fire us. What happens then? And I mean, I think in hindsight, like, well, you get safe and they separated. That was kind of the point, but it made it so much worse. And I think that's something that people don't seem to understand when they're like, but I just want to try. I think it's hard to even know what kind of advice to give to a survivor or a victim that wants to go into this sort of knowing, because I deal with, and I'm sure you do too, people who know that or believe that this person is disordered, but they certainly know that they're abusive or toxic. In a lot of the cases, by the time I see them, So they go into it somewhat knowing that they're going in with a disordered person or an abusive person, but they don't seem aware of how much worse it can get and how abuse can really escalate if they feel cornered or attacked by. Because on one hand, it's really validating for the survivor to be like, yeah, the therapist sees it and agrees. But what happens when a disordered or abusive person feels like 2 against 1 in a therapy setting?
Dangerous.
Yeah,
I
they get
used to
upset.
have, trainees working under my license. And so, they had clients. And the way that works is you're the supervisor, they're the supervisee. So they see the client, but they're technically my client, right? Because they're working under my license. And I had this person and she was working with a couple and the guy was absolutely disordered based on what she was revealing to me. Something that was really dangerous that happened. And again, I'm not saying anything disparaging, but we need to get the word out, to alert people of this. Her way to help the victim was to help her get more in touch with her boundary set.
Seen you in a while.
She encouraged her to go home and set firm boundaries with this guy. And then the guy hit her.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not that the woman had weak boundaries. It's that the woman intuitively knew if she sets them, she's going to get hurt. So to try to empower or encourage somebody to set boundaries with an abusive person is only going to escalate the abuse. You have to be careful what you tell the victim to do, right? You're not even supposed to really tell them, what specifically to do. That, I think, was a kind of a rookie mistake, but it could have been a fatal one, depending on how malignant this person was, right? So it's understanding the bigger picture here. Not everything's
I had an ex. I won't name their name unless I get pushed, and then I start will. But I had one. My dad confronted him while he was still alive, and then that night I went home, and then he tried to barricade me in my room. And then when I got out of my room, he took my head and he slammed it against the wall till I blacked out. So that's exactly what they're talking about. Hi, yeah, I've endured a lot of that type of shit. So unfortunately,
created, right? Some people are just not operating in the relationship in a collaborative way, right? And then you need to kind of know what the person is capable of. And the way you do that is you ask the right questions and you get the right data and you kind of get a feel for the person. It's just really, really important to get specialized training. And again, you can't predict who's going to come to your office as a therapist, right? You take a referral, you're ethically obligated to, get the referral. But once you start to notice that maybe like these problems are getting worse or, this isn't really like 2 people just trying to come together to resolve it, you have to either refer out to a specialist or you need to kind of say, I don't know if I'm the best fit for you, I'm going to try to find somebody else. I mean, it's complicated on all sides, right? It's like, it's not just that therapist sucked or this kind of a thing. There's so many variables that are hard to control. But I think what's most important, and I think what you're trying to do is you can't just go to like any average therapist and expect that they're going to understand this. And unfortunately, I think now there's more responsibility on clients to do more searching for the right type of help. Like really be clear on what the profile and the biography of the therapist is telling you. If they believe that there's no such thing as disorder and everybody deserves unconditional regard and it's just a matter of misunderstanding and you're being abused or you think you might be being abused, but you're not necessarily calling it that, I would keep searching. That's not a profile that is telling me that they are going to confront abuse in an appropriate way.
I remember, interviewing the therapist prior to, and I remember asking her, do you have experience working with people who just like argue? And the consult was alone. I was by myself. So I had a little bit more freedom, but I would never have said abuse, not even the word toxic, in fact. But I remember saying to her, do you have any experience with people where like, I just feel like I'm wrong all the time and I'm constantly in trouble and I feel afraid and like nervous to be wrong. And in hindsight, I sounded like somebody who's with somebody disordered, I suppose. But what I was really trying to ask was like, can you help me? But
somebody who's unreasonable. Somebody unreasonable on everything, right? They do no wrong, but you are always the one in the red. Yeah, that's definitely a problem, isn't it? There's a go nowhere situation. Hence when you're in therapy, be careful because maybe the other person you're dealing with, whether it's male or female, might have a, little BPD or something going on. Who knows? And those types of people are very unreasonable, or sometimes they'll go in looking like they're normal and they know exactly how to present themselves. Like psychopaths, they know how to blend in when they need to. And when the doors are closed, all the gloves are off.
I feel like I may have been lucky a little bit that I had some shreds of language, but ultimately I didn't go in and say, like, do you have experience working with people who are in abusive relationships? My partner is a narcissist. I would never know that. So it is so important to get the right therapist, and yet we don't know what that is. So you look, even if you know if it's abuse or you think it's disordered, you look it up. And I feel like you can click anything on Psychology Today and say that you have experience, but how do you really know that the therapist knows what they're talking about? I feel like you need to be in the room, and then who knows what happens at that point.
It's just like the field of medicine, right? Like all doctors go to medical school and they pass their exams and they do their residency. But there's a really distinct difference from like a psychiatrist and an oncologist. But we call them doctors. And so somebody can just call anyone up and say, oh, my internal medicine doctor has a medical degree. They can prescribe psychotropic meds. I wouldn't recommend going to your internal medicine doctor for those types of meds, even though they can legally prescribe them. I would go to someone who went...
Right, do the drugs, forget the reality. Oh, God help us all.
Further into specializing in what those meds do. Because there's a lot of people who get thrown on an antidepressant when they have PTSD from abuse, and their doctor said, oh, you probably just have some anxiety. They'll take this. It's the same thing with therapy. There's no such thing as you get a degree, you pass your exams, and then you know everything about psychology. And you shouldn't, and no one should expect you to. So I give this example a lot. I have no business being in a room with somebody with autism or schizophrenia. I learned about those things. I studied them. I
wonder if I could find my picture with George Clooney. I can find it. You want to see it? He looks like he could have been my dad. It's pretty scary. He's half Cuban. Does anybody know George Clooney's half Cuban? Well, now you do.
When you're a licensed therapist, you can legally diagnose them. Should you, if you haven't specialized? Absolutely not. I don't think that you have any business doing that. So look for people who's have a paper trail, if you will, of training specifically pathological abuse relationships, pathological, romantic relationships. There's phrases now where people will put on their profiles that, you need to pay attention to related to this type of thing. Unfortunately, you mentioned Psychology Today. When you're creating a Psychology Today profile as a therapist, you get the option to check all boxes on what you treat. And it's really just as simple as, maybe I'll get more clients if I check more boxes. So they could very well, the personality disorder box. A lot of therapists think personality disorders are just another way of saying trauma disorders or attachment disorders. So they lead you into thinking that they know exactly what you're dealing with. And unfortunately, it might just be that they thought, oh yeah, I read about those in school. I could check that box too, because I technically learned about it.
Yeah,
again,
I could do that.
I'm not trying to disparage, the field. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that it's important to look for. And it's hard to find good help in this realm. I think there's incredible help for all kinds of other mental conditions and issues. But you also just got to think about just pragmatically, two people coming together because they can't figure out why they're making each other miserable. They would typically sincerely want to stop feeling miserable.
Yes.
Personality disorders, they don't want to stop feeling miserable because they don't necessarily feel miserable. They just make people miserable, right?
How many people do you know? Anybody know somebody like that? They're not really miserable, but they're making everyone else very, very unhappy and depressed and miserable. And they just smile this is like another day at the dog fights for them. No big deal.
Distinction, yes. And I mean, they like it to a degree. They like the chaos and the drama, even though they tell you your drama and your chaos and they hate it. But that's not really what's going on. So it's hard. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Or they enjoy inflicting suffering. That's like a psychopath. Look at all the suffering that's going on in society today and who's at the helm of it, who's controlling it. And they enjoy that shit. They enjoy watching us all suffer and run around like rats in the maze trying to figure out where to get the cheese from or how to escape the damn thing, and you can't. They enjoy that shit. Bloodthirsty.
In therapy, I feel
I'm a little
what makes it dangerous is a variety of things. Obviously, talking about you leave therapy and it goes and hits you or something, that or worse. But I think even the lessening of emotional safety but the therapist said that you have to be more respectful like that. And then you're only deepening this and you get more confused, more invalidated, and less likely to leave. I had wanted to write this man a letter. I found out he was retired. So I skipped it because thank goodness he's retired. But it occurred to me like, I want to tell you that you made me stay. I just wanted him to know. He could never have responded. It was fine. I just felt compelled to say, you made me stay in an abusive relationship. And he went on to do some things that could have cost me my life because you didn't pick up on it. And maybe that's not fair. I'm not saying that what I felt was fair, but I just was like, you should know what you did and that you missed the point. I don't think he understood how I was feeling in the room. What do you think?
And do you think he really cared? No. He was getting paid regardless, honey. I think this, Lisa, if you're watching, just remember, some therapists can also be a psychopath or a weirdo with a mask on, okay?
I think survivors and
most therapists and psychologists also have to see somebody.
Victims are feeling when they're sitting there watching their abuser DARVO in therapy or, victim blame in therapy.
Well, I think a true victim, because, obviously personality disorders feign being victims. And listen, I know we're having an interview here, so I can't go into all the nuances. I'm not denying that a lot of people with personality disorders do have histories of adversity. The science shows that adversity isn't what actually is causing the personality disorder. But there's a difference between a victim who's experiencing what you just described, DARVO or those types of things. There's a sincere terror and bewilderment as to what's going on. They really don't know what's going on. Victims typically don't go around labeling their partners as narcissists or abusers because, like you said, oftentimes they don't even know that they're being abused. So you want to look for that too. Somebody who's really sincerely confused about what's going on. I think that also identifies, who the true victim is. The people who feign being victims are often quick to point fingers and externalize blame. And sometimes they do it without knowing it because they do it so habitually, they just kind of give themselves away. But there's a lot of ways to identify somebody being coerced, somebody being, forced.
Or using very shallow topics in order to instigate more issues, instigate more hostility and or quote unquote abuse. That's another way to do it. So I want to encourage everybody who's lurking about, if you haven't already, to give me a like, help me out in the algorithms, and subscribe. You'll be seeing far more of this type of stuff in the future. Lots of interviews, lots of things that's coming out on AGI, which is going to be our new adversary, our foe, and our friend all at once. So stay tuned.
Into submission. Somebody who is really just in anguish inside. You can pick up on that. And there's a difference between that and somebody who is trying to win favor with the therapist or make a good impression. And there's something missing underneath that a real victim would actually be, holding.
We talk a lot about narcissists, but never neurotic types. Well, you know what? I will look into it and then we'll talk about neurotic types. Good point.
Deeply.
I know there's a lot of nuance to that. I'm thinking, I remember one of the things that our therapist said to me in a solo private setting. She said that she noticed that I deferred to him. She would ask us a question and I would immediately what do you think? You answer, you go ahead, you talk, you say what's your issue. And again, I'm not saying that she thinks that's the number one thing, but she just noticed that and she perceived it, and I would say correctly, as a lack of safety on my part
to
actually speak. So if it was what are your issues with him? I'm I'm fiddling with my hair, quite literally, because I was nervous. So she picked up on that. But I think some victims, true victims of abuse, I don't mean the ones playing it, you're in therapy and you may be, I think it's probably a smaller category, but it exists, I'm sure. You've watched all the videos. You know who Dr. Peter Salerno is. You follow Lisa Sunny on social media. You know he's a narcissist. You just convicted and you get him into couples therapy because you haven't heard this episode yet. And you're like, he's a narcissist. I know you're not speaking broadly or you're not speaking generally, this covers every single scenario. No. But I do know what you mean. Most victims go into it sort of truly bewildered was the perfect word. Just absolutely what the hell is going on here? Why are we always fighting? Why is this always so hard? You really, they're so interested in self-reflection. Really tell me, what am I doing that's making this be this way? Because he says it's my fault and I want to do better. I just know that women sit in these meetings and they don't recognize that it's abuse. and they don't understand what the hell's going on, and they walk out of therapy feeling super
My thing is
invalidated. It
screaming
might
at
make
me.
them
Stop
stay.
talking.
We have to kind of notice what's happening in ourselves. I think if you walk out of therapy
Quiet.
feeling certainly invalidated, but
Quiet.
more confused, that's got to be a good sign that you're probably not with the right therapist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a difference between like resistance due to fear and lack of collaboration, or when somebody's
Sorry
like
about that.
frozen, like in emotional paralysis because of the abuse. But that feels a lot different too than somebody who's just refusing to cooperate and collaborate. Something that might be a good exercise to do is speak with a therapist, do like a consult or something prior to bringing your partner in the room and just saying, this is what I'm experiencing. Hopefully the right therapist will say, yeah, I don't think couples therapy is indicated. I think maybe some individual support for you. But right now what you're describing is you've been kind of beating this dead horse and the person is not, there's no resolution. That's a problem. Like, again, people who have true internal conflicts.
Because they want to be right. Those types of people want to be right. They want to be right. They want to be heard. Some of them want to be the leader in all things, and they're incapable of being a leader of anything oftentimes. And so they don't really care. Most of them, those types of people, also don't care how the other person feels or thinks or how they're even being treated. Unfortunately, there are people like that. Get away from them as quick as possible. It's not going to work.
They're ego dystonic. The things that are happening to them and the symptoms they're experiencing, they want to rid themselves of them. They want it to go away. Another that's really important to see in a couples therapy dynamic is that it's what's called help rejecting complaining. A personality disorder will reject the help that the therapist offers and then complain that it hasn't been helpful. So that's oftentimes an indication of some pathology. I worked with a couple who the guy would come up with all these excuses why the things I was trying to help him with just wouldn't work. Like, oh, that's just impossible. And then I finally just kind of said, it sounds to me like if none of these things work, then what I'm hearing you say is that this relationship isn't going to work. So this couple ended up getting a divorce, thankfully, because this guy was very narcissistic and unwilling to face it. But apparently throughout the entire divorce proceeding, which was dragged out for years intentionally.
Yeah, because he likes how he is. He thinks he's the best thing ever.
Because, there was a refusal.
Or she is the best thing ever. We can change the shoe.
To collaborate. He actually said that the reason he got a divorce was because of me. He was backed into a corner.
He shifted the blame onto the therapist. It's your fault I got a divorce. Well, maybe some therapists that could apply, but this guy, I highly doubt it.
In that session, and I'm the reason his marriage didn't work out. I mean, that's a perfect example of somebody who shows up and he never had an intention of being sincere. He never had an intention of being humble, being accountable. It was really, he came there to see if I would confirm that his wife was the problem. And that happens a lot too, is the help rejecting complaining. It almost seems like they're trying really hard because they're very emotional. And there's this idea that disordered people don't get emotional. No, they're very emotional.
Hell no. It's like 24/7 screaming. 24/7 flipping out on everything. And some of them are breaking shit, throwing stuff. And you better be able to duck. This one guy I had, he used to throw his cell phone at me all the time. Holy shit. And until I started throwing it back.
They're just emotional in ways that aren't, productive. So we can go all day with all the nuances and things like that. But it's just really important to get some time.
Oh, you noticed that too? And then he turned his head to the side and I saw it on the side too at the back. I was like, what hairstyle is that? I don't know, sir. He's got frosted tips. No, I'm not, degrading how the guy looks or anything. I'm not doing that, but I don't know if I like that hairstyle very much. Not particularly.
With the therapist before I think you even enter into the couples thing, unless you feel safe.
Pool noodle.
Couples who come and feel safe, they problem solve, they do the Gottman stuff, they do the attachment stuff. It gets worked out pretty quickly. I know I'm kind of oversimplifying, but it's true because they're willing to go do it because they don't want to live this way anymore. That's not the case with abuse. The abuse is going to be sustained because the abuser, is benefiting from that.
I think a lot of women go into this thinking that, he's got trauma. Like, we have communication issues because when he was little, his mom used to scream. So if I ever raise my voice.
Oh, for the love of God, I am so tired. I'm so tired of hearing people use their childhood as a scapegoat a way of not taking responsibility for who they are and how they conduct themselves. I don't buy that. I don't buy that crap personally. I don't do that because it doesn't matter what happened to me in the past. If I can't move forward and conduct myself like a semi-normal, caring human being, then, I'm going to check myself into the mental institute seriously and get reevaluated. There's something wrong there. But we've got a whole society of people that we've birthed, which is, oh, it's not me, it's you. Or if it's not somebody else, oh, it was my mommy or my daddy. Right. Well, mommy and daddy can have a whole litter of children. And like my dad said, it's like playing Russian roulette. You don't know what you're going to get. You can have perfectly good parents and you're going to have an asshole kid. It happens. It's a thing. Sorry, not sorry. It's the truth.
Waste, or it just brings him back. So can you help us work through his childhood trauma? And again, if it's a disordered person, they may have trauma. That's not the cause of their behavior.
My mommy spanked me. I have trauma.
So what is my question? Like, why does therapy feel like the next logical step for people, even when they know it's abuse?
Here's how the therapist should handle that. If that person has that trigger that's being activated from their childhood trauma, that is not something that's supposed to get resolved in couples therapy. Couples therapy is actually not supposed to be a deep dive into the individual. It's supposed to be, problems.
Hard times, for the most part, are supposed to make you better. They're supposed to make you more resilient. They're supposed to make you figure out problem solving, critical thinking skills, and adapt or die. So, do we want trouble? No, but if you're alive long enough on this earth, you're going to have some eventually. There's no such thing as a drama-free world, gentlemen, ladies. That's a myth. That's a fantasy. And I don't live in a fantasy, nor do I want to. I don't want to live in a simulation. Thank you.
Solving the dynamic in the relational dynamic. So if that person does have those things, here's how you can out them if they're lying about it, or if it's not really the culprit.
I'm going to call you
They
after.
go to individual therapy. They sort that out. If that's really what's the problem, those issues in the relationship should be resolved.
I didn't forget.
That rarely happens. If you send someone with a personality disorder to therapy to work on their childhood, it doesn't make the relationship any better, which tells you that really wasn't the reason why it was problematic, And they're not really willing to do that because I think they know that that's a convenient excuse. It might even be true. Again, these people do come from really adverse environments, but a lot of people come from adverse environments and don't act that way, right?
That's the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen. Like that, it's true. We don't all act this way.
No,
so
we don't all act that way.
Like, I don't care about your trauma, but we can't lean on that as the cause and the excuse
it's called maturity. It's called grow up. How about that one? How about we all in society grow the hell up instead of living in Neverland and thinking your childhood is extended into your 40s? Sorry, it's not reality. You're an adult. After 18, baby, you're an adult. People prior to the 1930s were getting married and having kids by the time they were 17 years old. My grandfather did it. So I know.
Man, a narcissistic person will bank on that and, poor me the whole way through, and then everything just continues. But I feel like therapy always feels like the next logical step because the world tells you that, your friends, your family. It's like, have you tried therapy? Have you tried? And people are not realizing all of
from us or the cusp of the hard-nosed Gen Xers, said by a hard-nosed Gen Xer right there. The solution: quit being a little bitch. And it's true. It's true. Some of you need to get bullied. Some of us have gotten in some big old fights. How many people get into big old fights these days? They don't. Like, seriously, I've had my nose broken twice. How many people, or girls for that matter, get into fights anymore? I'm not talking about getting jumped now, for being white or black or whatever. Not some of that weird stuff you're seeing, but in general, not many. When people ask me, how did you break your nose? I'm like going, oh God, do I really have to talk about this? Because every time they ask me every single time. And then when I say, they're like astounded, like that's ever happened. Like, oh my God. And I'm looking at them going, what did you live in an island somewhere? Would mommy wrap you in saran wrap and bubble wrap and send you out the door and nobody ever bullied you? Some of these people need to get bullied so you can learn some damn resilience. Let's go.
What we're talking about, that therapy is not going to fix an abusive relationship. In fact, therapist Aisha Grevenberg, who I've had on my show before, I love that she said this, and I'm having her back next season to talk more about this topic, is that therapy doesn't fix abusive men at all. We're not talking about couples therapy. She's talking about that's not what's going to help. And she's actually not specifically talking about a disordered person.
Millennials, yeah.
For her, this is like a sociological issue. This is society.
Yeah, some of you millennials are on the tail end of the Gen Xers, okay? Of the whole more normal shit of where kids were getting bullied all the time and had to duke it out. Assert your dominance, gentlemen, on the playfield.
This is the belief system. The world completely needs to change. You need to unpack all of your misogyny. So there's no world in which you send a narcissistic or abusive person to therapy, couples or individual, thinking that that's going to heal them, because it's not really why they're being abusive.
Absolutely.
What do you feel like the
Uncle Guns, does that apply to women? If the man is always acting out of pocket, does the woman get to go to the store? Is there a store for women to go and just go, that one looks good, let's try that one on and take them home? I'm just kidding. Oh, that's a good idea. Movie. Oh, I could use AI for that one too, right? It'd be like a bunch of cyborgs in there. Everybody can go in and shop for their new husband and their wife and bring it on home. And when that model doesn't work, we just swap that. Goes right with the whole disposable society, doesn't it? Right? Instant gratification. If your woman or your man is just, I just didn't like what they said today. Off with you. Goes with that whole instant gratification and disposable mentality that's totally fucking society up. Yes, let's just continue perpetrating that into society.
Audience needs to know here about deciding whether or not they're going to go. I think that there are
and then
people
you wonder
who
why divorce is
and
high.
They're never going to go. Some people
Next.
still will. I would have put myself in that category. You could have told me never to go. I would have gone. So what would you tell people? Make sure you've got the right therapist. What about internally? How can you tell if this is feeling like things are moving forward or not?
I would actually say before you go and seek therapy, I think if this interview crosses your media or you happen to stumble upon it and you are not sure what's going on in your relationship, I would actually get some education before taking the step to therapy. I would read the right books. Maybe you have to go down the rabbit hole of all of these interviews and this kind of content, because you have to broaden and expand the possibilities of what's going on in the relationship. It might not be that you guys just have a communication problem. It might not be that you're just misunderstanding each other, or it might not be that there's unresolved trauma. What it might be is that there's somebody intentionally derailing the progress of the relationship and to maintain control of the relationship, and get really clear on, the terminology and the pathology. And then when you do start to look for therapy, again, the word therapy means to heal. It's about healing. So, you can't heal someone else's wounds in a couples therapy dynamic. That's not how it works. They need to go and take care of that if that's really what it is that's causing the dysfunction. And
you can't help somebody who doesn't want help, right? Like an addict. Until the addict is ready to change, they're not going to. No matter how much you beg, you plead, you love them, you want them to get help. No matter how far rock bottom is, sometimes that rock bottom isn't far enough, and they don't want to change. But when they do, then they're ready.
Somebody who is really, not functioning optimally because they're traumatized, they would want to do that because it feels terrible to walk around with trauma. So there might be some resistance and some fear to the process, but that's not lack of collaboration. That's legitimate. But also kind of take inventory of your relationship. Are these enduring patterns of behavior that just will not get better no matter what you've tried, no matter how compliant and small you've gotten in the relationship? You can do a lot of your own work before you go into therapy, thinking that the therapy is going to somehow change, someone in a really profound way. Therapy can change collaborative people in very profound ways. It can be life-saving.
I'm so pro-therapy, pro-licensed mental health therapy, and I say that as a coach. I think there's space for, all of us to be in this industry, but it is really important for people
that's
to
kind of personal,
know what they're
though, isn't
walking
it, Uncle
into.
Guns?
You said
Isn't that kind of personal? That's like trying to tell me I should stayed with the guy who was bouncing my head off of the wall, making me black out, right? Right? Right. Yeah.
Your recommendation would be to like slow down
The
before
same
you
guy.
even get into therapy and do some education. I just want to like replug your books here because I truly mean this. There has been very few books that I have read over the last 5 or 6 years that I've been sort of in this field. I could name on really one hand the amount of books that I think are like profoundly like life-changing things to read. Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft, How He Gets in Her Head by Don Hennessy. And I mean this, all 3 of your books. Like top 5, I truly, those books, and I hear from people too. I mean, obviously this is my opinion, but I am constantly hearing from people how life-changing your books have been. And I only recently read Cruelty.
Now here, I got a story for you, Toasty. And also Kai, because both of you are kind of saying the same thing. So Kai said the whole thing, here, let me put it up there first. Whole thing is therapy isn't actually intended to fix you. You're kind of meant to keep going for maintenance or whatever. Toasty, I've never liked therapy. I feel they just keep the wound open and purposefully keep me from moving forward so they can keep getting my money. I used to, I didn't need the job. I just did it because my dad had passed away and I needed something to do because I worked from home. I had closed up my warehouse and I started working out of home, and I moved up closer to be with him before he had passed away. Oh God. I got stuck working with this I'm going to be a therapist bitch in this beauty salon. And she was going to Cal Poly. I can't even remember her name right now. Doesn't matter anymore. I can still see her ugly face. Anyways, her and I would constantly get into it because she was full of shit. Okay. She was just full of shit about everything. And she was a staunch socialist. All right. Ugh, not a good combination for me, with me either. And one day I looked at her and I said, be honest with me. Because she used to brag about all of her studies and things she's learning and things she's doing. I was like, be honest with me. Is the whole point of therapy just to keep people in therapy for a paycheck? And she said yes. She said yes. She literally said yes. She said it in a nice way, but it was still a yes at the end of it. So if that answers the question, there you go. You know, it's, in my opinion, it's like doctors. Here, take this here, take this prescription as opposed to actually healing the problem with your body, right? So we're treating the symptoms, but we're not actually healing the body and taking care of what the actual issue is. We're just putting a Band-Aid on it. So, I mean, if you can find a therapist or somebody in that medical field, I would suggest, like this man is saying, obviously, you want to vet them. You want to vet them like you would, hopefully, if you're smart enough. I would like to think that all of my audience and everybody who's in the chat and everybody around me, we vet our partners, right? We should vet our partners. We should vet people. If you're going to go into business with them, you want to vet them too. Like, you should be vetting people who are supposed to be handling your life in very, very significant ways. You're not going to go to, you got a heart problem, you're obviously not going to go to a plastic surgeon to get heart surgery, or vice versa. Hey, I want a great facelift, or I want a great nose job, or hey, I got smashed in my face and I got to fix my cheekbone or something. I'm not going to go to some guy who's works on feet to do my face. No, that would be asinine. So, a little bit of, common thought and some smarts. Yeah.
Cruelty by nature, because it's new, it just came out. But like, to learn that it's so on purpose, I think is something that's going to light up people's brains. You're not going to sit there in therapy thinking, hey, we're collaborative, when you realize that somebody who is this abusive and this pathological is literally, I'm oversimplifying, but like aware of what they're doing. They understand right and wrong.
Agreed,
they know
Bandit.
that they're hurting you.
Agreed.
And they're fundamentally doing it anyway. To me, that's like the key that unlocks everything. And it might deter you from going to therapy with them at all, which would be a win in my books. I think so.
Yeah, me too. I just want to, I'll say this because, it might be jarring to hear, but it's an unfortunate reality we have to accept. Abuse is a social strategy for a lot of people. It's not an unconscious reaction to trauma. It's a social strategy. It's working for them. They won't give it up to save their life or their relationship. So if you're with
why would
someone
they?
like that,
It's a control
I would
factor.
avoid going to a therapist who assumes that every
And
human
those who
being
are in
is the same
control
on the
are
inside,
winning, right?
and they all just want to be better, and then you can find the wound and then problem solved, marriage saved, or relationship saved. I will also say it might be a good idea to, consult with some coaches even before therapy. One of the reasons why the coaching field has blown up in the last 10 years is because of lack of competent care and therapy. There were coaches who were willing to say, hey, something's wrong because we're going to these professionals and they are invalidating my experience. And they're saying that I need to stay with the person who is going to cost me my life. Why are they doing that? And there's been survey data in the last 10 years that's shown that like the forums that people created to try to make sense of what they were going through, kind of have given rise to.
Or it's so full of propaganda, right? And it keeps people in a perpetual revolving door because of what's going on in society. Now, I'm not degrading therapy. I'm showing everybody, if you're going to do therapy, do your homework. And if you're going to do couples therapy and you're dealing with somebody who's absolutely unreasonable, okay, and they're doing things that are abnormal, then you're obviously dealing with somebody who's got some kind of psychopathy. So then that's why I'm presenting this. So I'm not saying that people don't need therapy. I'd say all the guys in red pill need therapy because the problem is you. It isn't the women, it's you. Because there's lots of good women out there, and they're like Coco said, she's like, I'm everything that they say that they want, but yet they don't. So, case in point, get therapy, gentlemen. Fix yourselves. It starts on the inside. The external will only get you so far. It starts with the inside. Okay. I've got a picture with him. I'll show you one of these days. I got to dig it out. It's in my packed stuff. I've got a picture with Flounder from Saturday Night Lights. He was a nice guy. He was real funny. Talked to him often. Okay. I didn't want to date him. When it wasn't just because he was fat, but he wasn't my type anyways. But he was surrounded by women because he had a good personality. You can have all the money and the status in the world, and those things will get you places. Absolutely. You can buy whatever you want. You can get a gold digger. Hell, I got gold digger men, and I didn't even know it at the time. So, I know all about that. You can buy whatever you want, but you're not going to buy real love. So if you think you have to be absolutely tall and beautiful and gorgeous and rich, no, you don't. Sometimes just being charming and funny and knowing how to treat a woman will get your foot in the door. I've dated down, and I'm not saying I'm the best looking thing in the world. I'm not, but I've dated down, and I've known lots of other girls who are good women who've dated down. So that's not really what it's all about. Money, looks, status. Yeah, it'll take you places. It'll also take you places that won't be sincere. But, you get what you pay for. If that's what you're into, that's all you want. Superficial is what you'll get.
Like this coaching field of coaches who will blatantly say, I think that person is intentionally doing this, or that person's, a narcissist, where therapists will not be willing to do that. Right.
Yeah.
So there's more options than just traditional therapy,
Yeah.
Uncle Guns, well, here we go. Get coaching with me. I'll teach you to pick up women. Grocery store for $99.95. Why 95 instead of 90? Why not $99.99? Are we doing limited time offer? Order now. Well, you heard it there. Talk to him, gentlemen.
I love that you said that, obviously, but I am so that coach that's like, so that's abuse.
Right.
And a lot of people book with me to ask that question. I have lots of long-term clients, but I also have a pretty good amount of people that are like, this is abuse, right? And I think that therapists are like, well, hold on, we're not going to label. And I'm like, yeah, that's abuse. And I know when I'm oversimplifying things, and I know that there's nuance and context, but I also intentionally and openly, right? I'm not doing this sort of in the shadows of, I'm oversimplifying because I think some of this doesn't need to be so complicated. I'm not a scientist, you're a scientist, that to you.
Forgive me.
But is repetitiously name calling abusive? Yes. Let's not, well, maybe it's an attachment. Maybe I don't care. So I like the I think that's why there's room for all of us. Like, listen to the scientists, but maybe listen to the interviews
Shadow Man
of
also.
both of us collaborating together to bring you this message of couples counseling does not work with this type of person. And if you're going to do it anyway, be as eyes wide open and prepared as you possibly can be before you go into it thinking that this is going to change them. Even them going into solo therapy, like I said, is probably...
Remember, you might just open Pandora's box and they'll come at you with guns blazing, baby. That's no fun. I'm going to start wrapping it up here in just a second. Let's finish what they're saying.
Not going to do much, if anything at all. But people are trauma bonded and people are desperately attached to these relationships. So I know it's really difficult.
Wow, sometimes it's circumstance. Sometimes you can't get away when you want to get away. Sometimes there's no money to get away. It takes money and resources to get away. Ask me how I know. Yeah, it takes money and resources, and sometimes you need family and or friends if you don't have family. And not everybody has all of those things and all those tools in their toolbox of things to do, you know. Sometimes you have to go to a shelter if it's really, really bad, obviously. But, you know, for some people, it's more, it's a little more subtle. It's intense, but it's not intense enough to go to a shelter, if you catch my drift.
For people. And for those that are listening or watching and you don't know, Dr. Salerno and I actually host some group coaching programs. One is called Trauma Bond Recovery and one is called Rise and Rebuild. And I think fundamentally you've got the group of people that are in or out of the relationship, but actively attached, actively trauma bonded, that want to really learn the true actionable skills to get yourself out with proven methods. And then Rise and Rebuild is for people who are typically out of the relationship, or let's say on their way out at least, who are really like, I've got my PhD in narcissistic abuse and I'm done with the podcast and the books and I just want to focus on myself and I just want to feel better. And that's what Rise and Rebuild is geared towards. So I'll have...
Yeah, your self-help and your self-help books can only get you so far with yourself. I remember when I was learning bass, at some point, I was like, shit, the book isn't working anymore. I've got to take a lesson, you know? Like I was endeavoring to really get slapped down, man. I really wanted slapped down like nothing. I need a damn lesson and strengthen my hands. No, am I going to talk about that anymore? But here, let's for all of the self-help and all of that wonderful stuff here. Hold on, let's look at this here.
Show of hands. How many of you retards own a self-help book? Well, that's your first problem. You can't help yourself because yourself sucks. If you're helping yourself, that means you're being helped by a complete asshole. So ignore yourself.
Like you said, you're helping yourself and you're an asshole. So ignore yourself. So, you know, all the books, buy my book, buy my latest this, buy my latest that. You're only going to get so far. And what if it's not what you need? Sometimes what you want isn't really what you need, or vice versa. What you need isn't really what you want, right? Everything's coming up roses. I can't sing right now. My God, never mind. My throat. All right, let's turn these two wonderful people off. Thank you so much, Lisa Soni, with Dr. Peter Salerno. I appreciate you for bringing up this important point toward the public that often goes overmissed and overlooked these days, which is sometimes who you're looking to get help from is going to create more problems, sometimes dangerous problems, and it can be a dangerous game to play and get the help that you actually really need. So make sure you vet who it is that you're going to. All doctors, get a second opinion, kids. Take it from me. Here, the Teacher's School of Thought. Get a second opinion, no matter what's going on. Sometimes who you're dealing with is going to overlook something and you might find somebody better, okay? Anyways, thank you for joining me on my last minute stream. I feel like horrible. And I was like, I'm not going to stream today. But then I saw this one video and I was like, you know, this is a good point. And self-made, you know, thank you also. He brought up a great point of using AI to discuss relationships and where that future's headed, kids. Do you really want to swap out your human connection for something that's fake and it's just going to mirror you. You realize that, right? You do realize it's just going to mirror you. It's not actually going to be another individual with more hope any more than another spouse would be, another human being. You don't want something that mirrors you too much. You want something that gives you enough pushback. Why? Because it's boring, number one. Number two, if you're a dude and you want a woman who acts more like a dude, then I guess you're gay. Sorry. Not sorry. You're gay. If you're looking for a broad to act more like a dude, then you're gay. And vice versa, girls. Girls, if you're expecting a man to be like a woman, just like a woman, well, then I guess you should go look for a woman, because it ain't going to happen. We're different. We're the same, but we're different. And we complement each other. And we complete each other. And we're supposed to build each other up, not tear each other down. Did you hear what I said? Build each other up. Don't tear each other down. And if you're tearing each other down, then there's something wrong with you. Knock it off. All right. The teacher is signing off. I love you all. I want you to remember to like and to subscribe. Please like the video. It helps me on the algorithms. It's helping me grow. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about these very interesting and complex topics moving forward. And wonderful guests like Mr. Delgado and Miss Deanna Winham and many others to follow. I love you all. And I wish you a fantastic Friday night. Have a good date if you're going to go on one, and a wonderful weekend. God bless. I love you all. Good night.